You know that feeling when you keep dating the same person over and over again, just wearing a different face? Different names, different jobs, different promises. But somehow the story always ends the same way. You're crying in the dark, wondering what's wrong with you. Here's what nobody tells you. It's not random. Nothing about this is random. And the reason you keep attracting these people has nothing to do with bad luck. It has everything to do with something that happened long before you even knew what love was supposed to feel like. Most people will spend their entire lives blaming the wrong person for this pattern. They'll swear off relationships. They'll convince themselves they're just bad at picking people. But that's the surface explanation. And you already know surface explanations don't help. What actually helps is understanding why your nervous system is magnetized to chaos. Why danger feels familiar. Why toxicity sometimes even feels like home. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was in her late 20s when she realized something terrifying about herself. She had been in 7 significant relationships. 7. And almost every single one followed the same arc. Someone charming would come into her life. Someone who seemed perfect. Someone who saw her. For the first few months, it was intoxicating. Like finally, someone understood her. But then things would shift. Slowly at first. The person who seemed so understanding would become critical. The person who was so attentive would become controlling. The person who made her feel safe would start making her feel small. And every single time, Sarah found herself staying longer than she should, fighting harder than was healthy, believing that if she just loved them enough, if she just tried harder, if she just changed this one thing about herself, they would go back to being the person she thought they were. She wasn't stupid. She wasn't naive. She was actually quite intelligent. So how did this keep happening? The answer is in her childhood. Sarah's father was an alcoholic. And he was the kind of alcoholic who was sometimes wonderful and sometimes terrible, with very little in between. When he was sober, he was the best dad in the world. Funny, engaged, present. He made her feel like she was the most special person alive. But when he drank, he was someone else entirely. Cold, distant, sometimes mean. As a child, Sarah developed a survival skill. She learned to read his moods with extraordinary precision. She could detect the smallest shift in his voice, the way he held his shoulders, the energy in the room. She became hypervigilant. Because if she could just predict when he was going to change, if she could just figure out the right thing to do or say, maybe she could keep him in the good version. Maybe she could control his mood. Maybe she could keep him loving her. This skill saved her as a child. It was intelligent. It was necessary. But here's the psychological part that matters. Her nervous system learned something crucial. It learned that love and unpredictability go together. It learned that you have to be hypervigilant to be safe. It learned that the best people are the ones who keep you guessing, because that's what familiar love felt like. So when she met men who were emotionally unavailable, who were sometimes warm and sometimes cold, who kept her confused about where she stood, her nervous system didn't register danger. It registered home. And this is where most people get this completely wrong. They think the problem is that Sarah has low self-esteem, that she doesn't believe she deserves better. But that's not actually the core issue. The core issue is that her nervous system was trained to interpret a specific pattern as safe, and every time she encounters that pattern, her body relaxes. Every time she meets someone emotionally stable and consistent, she feels bored. She feels something's missing. She even unconsciously creates drama to recreate that familiar tension, that familiar uncertainty, that familiar fight to make someone love her. This is what happens when childhood wounds operate beneath conscious awareness. Let me be clear about something though. This doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're doomed to repeat this forever. It means you're following a blueprint that made perfect sense at one point in your life. Think about why we're attracted to certain people in the first place. Science says we're attracted to what's familiar. We don't just fall in love with people. We fall in love with patterns. We fall in love with the reenactment of old dynamics, because our nervous system is literally trying to solve an unsolved problem. If you grew up with an emotionally absent parent, you might find yourself drawn to distant, hard-to-reach partners. Your subconscious is thinking, this time, I'll make them stay. This time, I'll finally win their love. This time, it'll be different. If you grew up with someone who was controlling, you might find yourself attracted to people who take charge, who make decisions for you, because control actually feels like certainty. It feels like someone's paying attention. It feels like love. If you grew up with criticism, you might be attracted to people who challenge you, who push you, who make you feel like you always have to prove yourself. Because that struggle, that's where love lived in your house. But here's the realization moment. You are not your nervous system. You are not your patterns. And most importantly, you are not condemned to repeat what happened to you. The fact that you keep attracting toxic people is actually evidence of something important. It's evidence that you're capable of deep bonding. It's evidence that you don't give up on people. It's evidence that you're loyal. Those aren't character flaws. They're actually beautiful traits. They're just aimed at the wrong people. What changes everything is bringing this pattern into conscious awareness. Right now, it's operating in the dark, in the part of your brain that doesn't think. It just reacts. It just feels. But the moment you see it, the moment you understand why you're attracted to what you're attracted to, something shifts. You're no longer a victim of your patterns. You become someone who's choosing differently. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you read this and suddenly you start dating emotionally healthy people. But what does start to happen is that you begin to notice your own behavior. You start to pause. When you feel that familiar pull towards someone unavailable, when you feel that old excitement of trying to win someone's love, when you notice yourself shrinking or changing who you are to fit into someone else's life, you notice it and you pause. And in that pause, there's freedom. The other thing that changes everything is actually grieving what happened to you. It sounds counterintuitive, but most people who repeat toxic relationship patterns haven't actually mourned their childhood. They haven't let themselves feel the full weight of what it meant to grow up with an emotionally unpredictable parent, with a parent who loved them inconsistently, with a parent who made them responsible for managing their emotions. When you actually grieve that, when you let yourself feel how sad it is that you had to become hyper-vigilant as a child, something softens. And when something softens, you don't need to keep reenacting the story. You already know how it ends. The last thing I want you to know is this. The people you attract are a mirror. They're not a punishment. They're feedback. They're your nervous system trying to communicate something to you. If you keep attracting the same type of person, it's not random. It's a message. And now you know how to read it. You don't have to figure this out alone. Therapy, especially trauma-informed therapy, can help you rewire these patterns. So can honest friendships, where people call you on your patterns with love. So can learning what healthy relationships actually feel like and how uncomfortable they might initially feel because they're not familiar. The path to breaking this cycle isn't about becoming more discerning or more picky. It's about healing the wound that's calling these people to you in the first place. And that healing is absolutely possible. It's happening for people right now. It could be happening for you too. If this video resonated with you, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and tell me what pattern you've noticed in your relationships. What was familiar in a way that didn't serve you? Sometimes just naming it out loud is the first step to breaking free. And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to the channel and watch the next video. We're going to talk about exactly how to start rewiring these patterns and what healthy love is actually supposed to feel like when you've never experienced it before. You deserve that. You deserve someone consistent. You deserve to be chosen, not chased for. And you deserve to stop blaming yourself for trying to love people the only way you knew how.